Coming along to episode 6 of the SimBoxx Presents Let's Talk Boxing podcast. And we are flying into another huge weekend of action. Delighted, as always, to be joined by my co-host, Jamie. Jamie, it's Usyk Dubois, it's the rematch, it's undisputed, it's historic, and it all goes down Wembley, July 19th. I'm buzzing for this one, mate.
Buzzing, absolutely buzzing. We've got a nice card, nice round of boxing this weekend because obviously we've got Dubois Usyk, undisputed fight, round two, and then obviously across the pond you've got the return of Manny Pacquiao fighting Barrios on a stacked card. So I think we're in for a treat this weekend, and it looks like another all-nighter for me.
Of course, and let's not forget the pound for pound superstar Jesse Bam Rodriguez, one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's unifying those super flyweight world titles in against Cafu, which again we'll get into it later on in the pod. We don't want to lose track of where we're up to here, but he's fighting to unify the division this weekend, and they've already announced his next fight for a Riyadh Season Ring Magazine card in November. It gets a bit sticky when that happens, Jamie. We've been here before with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, amongst others, where boxing's a funny old game. You can try and make these plans, doesn't always go
No, I
according
don't
to
like that. I
script.
don't like it, me. No, I don't like it. It's you're sort of telling your opponent that I'm too good for you. And I think that's when some fighters lose when they think they're too good for the opponent. They organise a fight after, and then all of a sudden they get upset because they're not obviously not bothered about that fight because they're looking at it as, oh, it's just a tick over. Whereas in reality, it's unifying the division. It's a big fight against a dangerous opponent, and you're already announcing a second opponent, which it doesn't. I don't agree with it, but that's boxing and it does happen. But let's hope that he don't end up, with egg on his face.
Absolutely. We'll get into that fight later on in the podcast, but let's start at the top. As we say, Wembley Stadium, it's packed out. I think they're expecting a crowd of 90,000 fans there. I think one of the things that's going to be interesting this week, Jamie, with Usyk and Dubois, is the split of the fans. First and foremost, Daniel Dubois is a Londoner, he's a British fighter, but Oleksandr Usyk is universally loved and he's fought away his whole career. He's won every world title he's ever won on away soil, and he's adored by fans around the world for what he's dealing with his home country in Ukraine, the troubles that are going on over there. He's fighting through that adversity, and he's beating pound for pound superstars on the road, undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight, looking to become two-time undisputed. So let's start there. Where do you think the split the crowd will be? Obviously, the majority will be for Dubois, but I think there's going to be a fair share there of Usyk fans that will certainly be British fans.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, don't get me wrong. You want to be backing the British fighter, and I'll be backing Daniel Dubois all the way. But I do think, how can you not like Usyk? How can you not like him? Like, he's funny, he's energetic, he's got a good aura about him, and he just makes everybody laugh. And he's a chilled guy. And I think he has won over a lot of fans, and he's had to do it the hard way. And I think he's won fans by the fact that, like you said, he's done it in two divisions, but then he's done it all on the road as well. He's beaten everybody, all the top fighters. So I think obviously still the majority will be there for Dubois. Obviously I don't think we'll hear any boos for Usyk when he comes out, but I do think we'll hear a much bigger roar when Daniel Dubois starts making his entrance.
Yeah, speaking there of Usyk's character and his persona and his personality, I was speaking to Billy Nelson earlier on, which is an interview that's available on the YouTube channel. So, quick plug for that interview with Billy. But I mentioned to him, and he agreed that when you see somebody like Usyk, this character and personality, it's very similar to Canelo. That was the example that I used, where when these fighters that don't speak great English, but they start learning the language, and you see the character and the personality come out, the real interesting, funny people, and it shines through. And Usyk's definitely one. I mean, how are you, Alexander? I feel I'm very. How many times do we say that? That's almost become like a synonymous with Usyk now. I'm very feel. I
Yeah,
say it in everyday life. In his
that's it. Well, yeah, people do like. I'll be in work and I'm out doing that. I don't feel. It's just it has become a thing, and yeah, and it is funny when they do start learning English, and they're quick with it as well, and then like we're understanding the jokes better rather than a translator, and like you said, it really brings out the personality, and I think how can you not like Usyk? What a guy!
Absolutely. Let's go back to the first fight. Obviously, this is the rematch. First fight in August of 2023, I want to say. Uh, Out in Poland, as close as possible. Usyk could have a homecoming with all the troubles that are going on, as I say, in Ukraine. There was a lot of Ukrainian people in the stadium that night, and I think the intangible about this rematch was born in the fifth round of that fight because ultimately Usyk dominated that fight. He stopped Daniel Dubois in 9 rounds, but in that fifth round is where I think the intangibles come to make this rematch sellable, if you like. It's what Team Dubois are grasping onto, that was it or wasn't it a low blow. Usyk was given the mandatory 4 or 5 minutes from the referee, which is the norm for that kind of situation. But Jamie, give me in your words, man. Was it low? Was it legal?
I don't. I think it was legal, mate. I'm going to stand on business with that. I do think it was legal. Obviously, there's been a lot of arguments over whether it was low. Different angles aren't great, but when you watch it in real time and you slow that and it's slowed just a little bit, for me, it was definitely legal. And I've heard the argument of, below if it's below the navel line, then it's a low blow, which that's correct. But if your navel line's not showing, then how can it be a low blow? Because it was his belt line was a lot higher than what his where his navel was. Maybe not a lot higher, but you couldn't see his navel, and it was bang on the belt line. So for me, I thought it was legal. I can understand the argument, but he does wear his shorts quite high.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree. I thought it was low. I thought it was low at the time. I think again, it's down to angles. Like these Instagram models, it's all about the angles, and depending on which way you want to look at it, you can find whatever answer you want, really, can't you? If you freeze framing it, you skip a couple of frames down, and it's all of a sudden higher than when it originally landed and whatnot. But yeah, but my point being is, do you think Usyk is weak to the body? Is this just a myth? Is this because he's so great,
No,
or just trying
no,
to
I
grab hold
think
of anything and try and take a little chink out of his armor? Because as I say, he's been so superior against Tyson Fury, against Anthony Joshua, Derek Chisora, all these other contenders at cruiserweight and champions at cruiserweight. Are we just trying to cling on to something to say, you know what, he's got to be weak at something, he's got to be poor at something, he's got to dislike something? Is it the body? Is that where he's weak?
I think that is his weakest point. But at the same time, it's not really a weak point because he's took body shots and he has come back from it. But in his whole arsenal, if you're looking for a chink in his arsenal, that is the chink in the arsenal because he lost in the amateurs to Better Behave via a body shot. He's been hurt to the body a couple of times. Tyson had him hurt when he was in under his elbow and catching the body, and he hurt him to the point where he ended up taking a massive uppercut to the head because he wanted to try and cover up the body shot. So I do think he is weak, and that's where you've got to target him, but not even target him because he's weak, just because it's boxing and he's going to be on his toes. He's not going to be running like fucking Turkey likes to call it, but he's going to be in and out, moving constantly, lateral movement. And the best way to obviously stop that is to work to the body and tire the body out. So anyone that goes in with him, that has got to be the game plan. Whether it comes off is another story because he's that good. He knows that's probably going to be your game plan, and we'll have a game plan to stop it, and we'll probably be successful with it because his boxing IQ is phenomenal.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that fight is that when it did come to an end in the ninth round, as I say, it was a dominant round, dominant fight from Usyk, that he seemed to win every minute of every round. He stopped him in the ninth with a jab. Daniel Dubois took a knee, didn't beat the ref's count. The Q word, quit. Did he quit? And I always think, for me, I don't lace up the gloves. I can have my opinion, but I don't get in the ring. I don't fight. I don't fight at any kind of level compared to these guys. So it's difficult to point the finger and say, you're a quitter. You didn't have the heart for it. But you see the Joyce fight, you see this with Usyk, Carl Frampton and Tony Bellew. They brought it up on a show I was watching, and they're saying if you've got it in you to do it once, you'll do it again. Did he? Did he quit, Jamie? Did he quit in that first fight?
Hard to say, really, in it because obviously the Joe Joyce situation, but he did suffer
Yep.
a terrible injury off the back of that, and you could probably argue that it was the right decision to make. With the Usyk one, maybe there's an element of quitting in there. Yeah, there is. Because obviously he was losing every round and he was just getting his head jabbed off. But then that could have brought back flashbacks of the Joe Joyce situation and he's taking too many jabs to the head and psychologically maybe he was feeling the pain more than what was actually going on because and I don't know. Yeah, you could. It's horrible because you don't want to say that they quit, but obviously watching it, you like it did look like that. But at the same time, I do get that you also come off the back of not, I think, what, a year or two before shattering your eye socket by getting your head jabbed off constantly. So, maybe that happened, but I don't know. Be interesting to see how. But he's come back better from that at the
Well,
same
this is
time.
it. This
Like,
leads on to the next point that if we was to sit here, if we was doing the podcast in 2023 and we'd done a post-fight review and we was like, fuck, like Usyk's that good. He made Dubois quit, whether it be through pain, whether it be frustration, whatever it might be, he forced it out of Dubois. If we was to sit here then and go, in 2 years, we're going to be talking about a rematch with these guys. And not only that, but Daniel Dubois is going to go in there as the reigning IBF heavyweight world champion. And not only that, but he's going to go have a run of beating Miller by stoppage, beating Lorena, beating Hergovic, and then splattering Anthony Joshua across the ring in 5 rounds in utterly dominant fashion. And then he's going to go in to a fight with Oleksandr Usyk with people backing him to win. It's the trajectory of his career from then. Let's not shy away from Oleksandr Usyk either, because from that point he went on and beat Tyson Fury twice in what was
yeah,
the universally recognized number one and number two, in whichever order you had them. It didn't really matter, but it was number one and number two, and Usyk won and won well. But Daniel Dubois, the career turnaround, a lot of props goes to Don Charles and a guy we know very well, Kieran Farrell. He's got involved in the team there, and
yeah.
the
Bit,
change in
bit of
mentality, the
Kieran
change
Farrell.
in approach has been nothing short of mesmerizing from Daniel Dubois, and he's on a real run of form, and that's going to count for a lot because Daniel Dubois, he's not a Tyson Fury with the way he speaks. He's not a Conor McGregor or a Floyd Mayweather, you know. But when he's got a target, something to focus on, and this kind of momentum, he's one hell of a beast. Whether it works out for him on Saturday night, we'll get into that. But yeah, the run of form, Jamie, is fantastic. Up there with any run of form for any boxer in any weight division, I'd argue.
Yeah, it's been exceptional. Obviously, I think him and Parker are on par for the for the joint run of form of who they fought. But yeah, like sometimes you have to lose because he had it all. He had it all going his way up until obviously Joe Joyce. That ended badly with the injury, and then obviously fought Usyk. But I think them two losses and going down the way he went down in both fights and being able to quit her by, people within the boxing circle. I think it's changed him as a fighter. Like you said, his mentality. I think working with Don Charles is a great trainer for any heavyweight, any British heavyweight. Working with Don Charles, and he's very good at motivating. But like we touched on Kieran Fowler as well, bringing him into the camp. One thing to say about that guy is he can make you believe
Yep.
when you don't want to believe. Like he's got a way of just like talking to you and like I don't know, it's mad. Like he's a top guy, and I think
But the funny
bringing
thing is
having
with
Don,
Kieran is whether he's doing it with Daniel Dubois in a undisputed heavyweight world championship fight, and he's dragging it out of Daniel Dubois, or he's dragging it out of a 6-year-old that's at one of his boxer size classes. It doesn't matter to him.
yeah,
He just has a way,
yeah,
like you say, if you're doing one of his
yeah,
adult boxing classes that I've done with him before, you've been there much more than me. It doesn't matter who you are, what level or what age, he attacks it just the same. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
yeah. And I think adding him with the experience of Don Charles and also how the way he's good at motivating his fighters as well. I think you've got a good dream team there, and whatever happens, on Saturday night, win, draw or lose for Dubois, he's still going to go on and be dominant in this heavyweight division for years to come.
Yeah, that's the thing as well, and I think it's quite interesting when the pundits and Frank Warren promoters, anyone that's involved with the fight, they, they're saying the maturity. Now, it is only 2 years, but a lot's gone on in that 2 years. When they're saying it was Daniel Dubois, the boy, and that was Daniel Dubois, the man. But at 27 years of age, he is still a boy in a heavyweight division. He could still be around for 10 years, and that's a scary thought to think. Like you say, win, lose, or draw, he's got a lot left in the tank, and he's achieved a lot already and still maybe much more to achieve. With Alexander Usyk, he's at the opposite end. He's on the way out of the sport. He's achieved unimaginable wealth and success. Is there is it as simple as saying Usyk needs to become old overnight? Is that just an old boxing adage that doesn't really carry any weight here because Usyk's that good that age is only really a number? Does Dubois need to
Nah,
old overnight. Is that Daniel Dubois' route to victory? Because if Usyk's at his
Oh,
best, at his peak, it's a foregone
yeah,
conclusion.
probably. He needs to. Yeah, yeah. He probably does need to age it overnight. And I think the boxing cliche is there for a reason because sometimes you do watch a fighter, and they might have been great the fight before, but then the fight after they look like the age has caught up, and that happens sometimes. And don't know this might be happening with Usyk now, but I can't really see it because it's not like he's not been out the ring too long. Um, but I feel like this could be his farewell fight. I don't know about you, but obviously with his splitting with the manager not too long before the fight actually takes place, the age that he is, the fact that he could become a two-time undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, he's done it at cruiserweight, he's won everything at amateur. If he wins, I think it'd be the right time for him to bow out. And I think, regardless, I think this could be his last fight, and it's been a pleasure to watch him.
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes we're as the boxing community or in general, like the public in general, same with football and whatever else, we're very hesitant to give people the flowers whilst they're still active. It tends to be, 5 or 10 years after a fighter retires that you kind of sit back and go, you know what, you was great, you was generational. With Alexander Usyk, I think the majority of people kind of appreciate the fact that this is the kind of fighter that we'll be telling our kids about. Where if they become boxing fans the way we are, and we sit down and people of old will talk about Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Joe Frazier, and then in the 80s with the Four Kings, this is the guy we'll pin greatness on, and I think it's about time that we appreciate that because for me, it solidifies it if he wins on Saturday. But even without that, I think he is. I think he's top three heavyweights of all time. I think you'd put him, Lennox, and Muhammad Ali as top three. I think he's been that good. His achievements are that good. The list of people that he's beat is that good that he can't beat anything other than top three. And I
Yeah,
think, if he does hang him up on Saturday, which I think would be the right thing, because the only other guy he could really fight is Joseph Parker, but he beat the guy that beat the guy. He beat Joshua. Joshua beat Parker, and obviously Parker's at a different point of his career now. But is it really worth the risk? It's not a massively sellable fight either. The money you would make on Saturday, the money he's made from the fights with Fury, with Joshua, he's not short of a few quid. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that splurges his money either. So
yeah, yeah.
I think Saturday's the right
Do
night
you know
on
what?
that
I
platform as well.
genuinely believe the only reason he's probably fighting on Saturday is because some people have put question marks over whether or not the shot was legal or not. And I genuinely think that's probably the only reason
Yeah.
he's took the fight with Dubois again. So that he can go, all right, watch now, I'm just going to go out and absolutely beat him. And that's why I think if he beats him, it'll be done and dusted.
Yeah, one thing I don't want to see is this trilogy fight with Tyson Fury. Going off on a bit of a
No,
tangent here, but if Daniel Dubois wins on Saturday, then by all means, let's see Daniel Dubois against Tyson Fury. But I'd want to see him against Joseph Parker first, and we'll have all the mandatories and whatever else. But we'll get on to what might be next for Daniel if he wins. But Tyson Fury, these trilogy fights where the first two fights have already been won, why are we seeing a trilogy like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano? They fought for a third time at weekend. Two superb fights, female or male boxing. Those first two fights are so entertaining. So, groundbreaking stuff for female boxing, the money that they made, the platform that they was on. And that was the only reason why the trilogy was run back because of the financial aspects. If a fight is 2-0 up after two fights, why have a trilogy? So if you're in
yeah,
Usyk next April and Fury was to win and then it's 2-1, what are they going to do? A best of five, first to three. How does
yeah.
that work then? And it's never going to happen, especially at the age of these guys. So does then Fury have a claim to fame of being the best of this generation because he beat Usyk in the third fight? Would Usyk still
Yeah, that's what
beat you
no,
the first two times? It makes it so
yeah.
messy and
That's what I'm
unneeded.
saying. Yeah. It's that I'm not a fan of it because it opens the thing where you think, right, yeah, I'm better than I'm better than because I told you I could beat him. But it's like, yeah, but you've had to do it three times, whereas he's done it two, he's still 2-1, so he's still better than you. But then people go, now it beat him. And then you could go back through history and no, I'm not a fan of it because I think if you're 2-0 up, you're 2-0, you've won the trilogy.
Yeah.
Because you look at, in fact, and one that's an interesting one, Pacquiao Marquez. How many times did Pacquiao beat Marquez? And obviously Marquez, and to be fair, it was a belting knockout, one of the greatest knockouts of all time. But he celebrated like, yes, I knew, like
Yeah.
I'm better than you. I knew I could beat you, but it's like, but you've lost 4 times before, or 3 times, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm
but
not.
of that rivalry, of the Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez rivalry, what's the moment you remember most?
When I look back, yeah, that knockout.
That's why it becomes messy then, because for me, Manny Pacquiao is the
Yeah,
better fighter of the two. He
yeah, yeah, yeah.
close contentious fights, but he won. Um, with Tyson Fury, if he was to come back, obviously we want the Anthony Joshua fight, but I'd still love Tyson Fury to get in the mix with Daniel Dubois, Ajit Kabayel. Maybe the Joe Parker fight's never really going to happen because they're close. Zhilei Zhang. There's a lot of top fights there. Whether Tyson Fury can motivate himself for fights that aren't going to be as financially rewarding as a Usyk or as a Wilder, I'm not too sure. But you kind of look at his resume and you think, I want to see this filled out a little bit. I want to see these guys all mix it. Anthony Joshua, he's talking about coming in. Eddie Hearn's trying to put him in with Daniel Dubois. Should Daniel Dubois win? Like, fuck that. Like, if Anthony
Nah, I'm
Joshua
not.
comes
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
he has to go and fight Ajit Kabayel or Joe Parker, Zhilei Zhang, earn your stripes and
yeah.
get.
Earn your spot again. Yeah, I
And
think to be
Tyson
fair,
Fury should be the same.
both of them, Fury and Joshua, like now you don't be sat in the wings waiting for the winner of this fight. That's just bollocks. I think what really should be happening is them two should fight. Them two should fight each other. Obviously, it's still going to be annoying because I think even if they fight and whoever wins at this stage, you could still argue that they were both fucking well past it when they fought. But that's the fight to make rather than one of them two jumping in for a world title shot that they don't deserve. Fury's just lost back to back against Usyk. Joshua's been knocked out by Dubois. Nah, I'm not for it. Them two should fight out, and then the winner could then go and fight for the world title. But no, I think Kabayel and Parker should be the next in line.
But this is the whole thing about there's no overriding governing body of the sport, is that it's business and money talks, and that's why fighters like Fury, like Joshua, like Manny Pacquiao, we will get onto, can walk into these opportunities when other guys that aren't as marketable just get the victories, get the wins, do the slog, and don't get the reward at the end of it, or if they do, they get it at the wrong time. So yeah, that's a topic for another podcast, I'm sure. With regards to Saturday, coming back full circle, is this as simple as saying Dubois got to go for it early, or it's going to be Usyk late? Does Usyk have the power to hurt Daniel Dubois early, and can Daniel Dubois sustain a game plan into the championship rounds?
It's no, I don't think Dubois should go in early, and I think Dubois is strong enough and it's hard enough that he could take him out at any point. So I think don't blow your gasket too soon because then you will be looking at a late Usyk stoppage. Usyk, to be fair, could probably take him out early doors. I think the revitalization of Dubois and his mentality probably won't allow himself to get stopped early doors. I think the only way he's going to get stopped now by Usyk is more going to be tired going into the later rounds. But I think if anyone can catch Usyk, and shock the world with one punch, Dubois is the man. But I think you've got to put your money on Usyk, haven't you?
Yeah, I think for me, the mindset of Daniel Dubois is one of the key components to this fight. How he holds his nerve, how he approaches the fight, because it was very easy to predict that he'd not rise to the occasion against Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua was, even though they're both British fighters, Anthony Joshua was the hometown hero in September in Wembley. And Dubois flipped it on his head. He handled the atmosphere, the occasion very, very well. And I think that's going to be key on Saturday, because if those demons come creeping back into his mind and he kind of drifts off into what happened in Poland and how his heart was broken, how he was so befuddled, if that happens again in the first round and he kind of goes, shit, he's still as good as he was 2 years ago, then it becomes an easy night's work for Usyk. But if Daniel Dubois rises to the occasion again, like he did against Joshua, he takes it in his stride, it becomes very interesting then. That first round for me will epitomise how the entire fight goes. I think it's as simple as that. I think Dubois carries his power at any point, as we've seen. He stopped Jarrell Miller with seconds to go in that fight. I think Usyk's an underrated puncher. I think because his feet and his skills and his boxing IQ are so good. But of course, he's got to be meat on them punches, because you see some of the fighters after they fought and they're not half marked up. So yeah, to answer my own question, I don't think it's as simple as Dubois early or Usyk late. I think there's much more to it than that. But let's move into our predictions. We like putting each other on the spot. Jamie, I'll flip it to you. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Hear it.
Do you know what? I think Usyk will win on points. I think that's how it'll go down on from my side.
Short and sweet.
You
I
don't
like
want the
it.
one winner.
So I think for me, the questions that I mentioned there would Dubois have these demons creep back in? I think there's a possibility that could happen. I think he'll have his moments. I think he's too big of a puncher, too athletic, too mobile, not to have his moments against Usyk. But ultimately, I think he'll come up short, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no disgrace in that. Oleksandr Usyk is a generational great. I think he'll get to Daniel. I think he'll hit him from angles that will befuddle him all over again, and slowly but surely he'll work him down, work him out, and he'll stop Daniel Dubois. And I think he'll stop him similar to what he done last time between rounds 9 and 12. I think Oleksandr Usyk will be two-time undisputed heavyweight world champion. Bosh. So Manny Pacquiao, he's returning welterweight WBC world title. We've been wanting to get into this a little bit over the weeks. We're 6 weeks in now to the
Yeah,
podcast, Jamie. Um,
been bugging you to talk about it.
yeah. Uh, 4 years out the ring. Was it going to be 46, 47 by the time he steps into the ring on Saturday night? It was a convincing loss last time to Yordanis Ugas 4 years ago. He had an exhibition in the meantime. Didn't look great in that. He bypasses all the other contenders because Mitchell Soleimani likes a pound note. He steps in, ranks in without a victory, and yeah, we go Mario Barrios, who's a solid operator in his own right. I think often overlooked. He's looked at it like Manny Pacquiao's going to step back in and get this world title. Build the legend of Manny Pacquiao. It was also looked at with Conor Benn, where if I don't fight Eubank, I'll step back down and I'll win this WBC world title. Like it was just a given that Mario Barrios is there for the taking. So I think there's a lot of respect needing put on Mario Barrios' name. But let's start with Manny Pacquiao. He's the headline fighter. He's the pound for pound superstar and legend. Jamie, the floor's yours. I know you've been wanting and chomping at the bit for this. Manny Pacquiao, is it right? Is it wrong? Do you agree with it?
No, it's not right. It shouldn't be happening. Yo, I don't care. Pacquiao is an absolute legend. One of the best to ever do it. Love watching him. Do love watching him. Not trying to shit on Pacquiao at all because it's not his fault, right? But it should not be happening. Should not be happening. He can't be coming back after a 4 year hiatus at 46 years old, right? And then fighting, going straight into a world title fight. And you're right about Barrios, disrespecting Barrios by going, oh, do you know what? We'll put him in with Barrios and he'll win that world title. Conor Benn, oh, I'll fight Barrios. Like Barrios is a good fighter, really good operator. And got a good brain up there. Moves well, boxes well, puts his punches together well, and he's got a pretty decent defense as well. There's a reason why he's up there, and I just think it's fucking diabolical. I think the WBC, I'm sorry, but they're a joke of an organization. They're an absolute joke. I get it. He's one of the best, and he's a legend of the sport. But where does he deserve this opportunity? I don't care that he's Manny Pacquiao and that his name. It does not sit right with me. So where at 46 years old does he get this opportunity without even having a comeback fight? And like you said, his last fight, he lost the world title quite convincingly against an opponent which probably 3, 4 years prior to that fight, he probably would have easily beaten.
And this is the thing that's made it so difficult because, with Usyk and Dubois, we sit here and we preview the fight and we'll kind of dissect what they've done in the most recent fights. Manny Pacquiao, I don't know what's going to turn up. Will he walk to the ring with a Zimmer frame? I haven't got a clue what's going to go on Saturday night. I can't think of, other than Bernard Hopkins and George Foreman, another scenario where this has gone right. Ricky Hatton, a Manchester legend, a fighter that we hold very dear to our hearts. He come back against Zinchenko, a fighter that he would have bodied in his prime. He would have
Yeah.
took Zinchenko out. He was prime prey for Ricky Hatton in his pomp. He got took out by Zinchenko, and now we're looking at what was that 2013, 2014, and now Ricky Hatton's making a comeback. But Manny Pacquiao is of superstar status. He's went into politics in his own country. He had the mega payday with Floyd Mayweather. You've got to really question the motives to come back here. Can it be purely sporting at this age? He could have stuck to the exhibition route if that's the case. Um, it's very difficult to figure out what's going on here. It's very
It,
difficult to preview a fight that we've got a fight that's 46 years of age that is so far past his prime. It stinks. The long and short of it, it stinks. There's so
it
many
does
fights.
stink.
Echo Seaman, look at, good on his pro, coming off his career best win against Josh Taylor. he's more deserving of a world title fight. You know, I don't get it. I don't
I
know.
don't get
I
it.
don't know what can be done about it either, Jamie. That's the frustrating thing. We keep going
It's
back to it. There's no FIFA, there's no UEFA, there's no overriding body. When the body that is in charge, the WBC, is the one that's allowing it to go on. So I don't know where it ends. I really don't.
yeah,
Does it take Manny Pacquiao
it's
getting hurt on
it's
Saturday
it's
night? Does it take
madness.
Manny Pacquiao getting seriously hurt on Saturday night for something to be done about this?
Yeah, which could happen because I'm sorry, but 46. If he turns up, yeah, and absolutely annihilates Barrios, and he's quicker than him, he's stronger than him. I'm sorry, he's on the juice. There is no way because I just can't see. It's not even like he's coming back at 46 and he's fighting Jake Paul. Do you know what like you're fighting Barrios, who's a world champion, who's young, hungry, hits hard, got an engine. So don't see where he wins. And I think if he does win, I'll be sat here going, "Nah, it stinks." Just like the fact that for this fight, it stinks. I think if he somehow wins, it stinks, and there could be a really bad knockout here. And like you said, that could be the thing where we go, "Oh, do you know what? We need to stop letting all these fucking old timers back in."
Well, I think this is a dangerous aspect to the fight. That Mario Barrios, I think he's in a lose-lose situation. He's getting a career high payday, I'd like to imagine. He's fighting a legend of the game. If he gets beat, he'll be ridiculed for getting beat by a 46-year-old fighter coming off a 4-year hiatus. If he goes in there and he wins, it's like you've beat a 46-year-old fighter coming off a
Yeah, yeah,
4-year hiatus. And not only that, you could be the man that really hurts Manny Pacquiao. After the
yeah.
Usyk fight, you see the video of Manny Pacquiao being spoon-fed soup and his eyes were swollen shut. And we don't need to see that kind of thing, man. These fighters need protecting from themselves.
Yeah, and I think that, and do you know what? You're right, and that's where shame on the team around him. Like all they're asked about is the fact that it's going to make a nice little book, and I don't like it. Like I think obviously Pacquiao genuinely probably believes that I'm good enough to come back because fighters do that. They just genuinely think like I'm still just as good, and unfortunately you're not. You know, age does catch up with everybody. So I think he genuinely believes that to the point where they've been able to make money off it and go, do you know what? We're not going to tell him that. Like, yeah, we'll get him in there, we'll make dough, and nah, it's a joke. And there should be somebody around him going, do you know what? I think this is a step too far for you, Pac-Man.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs protection for himself. For what it's worth, just a quick prediction, because it's what we do with the fights coming up. I think it's Mario Barrios, and it's either a late stoppage or it's points. The romantic in me would love to see Manny Pacquiao win the world title and retire again in the ring. The worrying thing is if he does win, what comes next? Because there's some killers in that division. Imagine Brian Norman Jr., the knockout that he had out in Japan. Imagine that Brian Norman at 24, 25 years of age getting in the ring with a Manny Pacquiao at this point of his career. It's a scary thought. But yeah, I think it's Barrios' victory in whichever fashion he decides, really, with all due respect to Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. And again, pure respect to Pacquiao because if these were fighting 10 years ago and Barrios was obviously the age he is now, would 100% be backing
Yeah.
Pacquiao. And that's what frustrates me more. I hate seeing the fact that these legends coming back and getting beat to people that they shouldn't be getting beat to. But in my opinion, unfortunately, sorry Pacquiao, big fan of you, but I think it's gonna be a KO to Barrios.
Let's look back at some excellent boxing last weekend. It was family commitments meant we couldn't get on the podcast to preview some great fights, but it played out very well. We'll start with Katie Taylor. As we've alluded to earlier on in the podcast, she concluded her trilogy with Amanda Serrano. She won on points again, so she's won 3 times on the cards now against Amanda Serrano. Each fight getting bigger and bigger and more financially rewarding for both fighters, which is what we want to see. For Emo Boxing is riding such a crest of a wave now when Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano are at the forefront of it. The fight itself was nothing like the first two, was it, Jamie? It was a lot more disciplined, and I think that said a lot about the respect that these two ladies have for each other. That they know is if one of them lands, it's just like it's like lighting a fuse on a dynamite. It was just going to explode, and they both held the nerve and held the discipline, and it come down to boxing skills. And Katie Taylor was always going to be the better boxer, and that's how it went. She won on the scorecards. Did you agree with Katie Taylor winning?
Yeah, no, I did. I think the third fight was probably the one where hands down you knew the winner was Katie Taylor. The first two, there was arguments from various people that could have gone either way, whereas that was very much conclusive. And I think the game plan from Serrano, I think it kind of failed her because she decided to box on the outside and just couldn't land it. Most of the fight, she was hitting air. Yeah, I know. Obviously, look at the punch stats; they landed the same, more or less the same amount of punches, but she also threw something like double the amount of punches that Katie threw. So you have to look at that, and you're making a miss and you're catching them back.
Yeah.
I think it was an easy way. It was an easy decision to pick Katie Taylor, and it's a shame really because Serrano was good, and I just feel like the game plan wasn't the right. I think she should have just got in there and just had a tear up with her like she did in the last couple of fights, which did make them close.
You know, the cynic in me, Jamie, was so I'm part of a prediction league on this Facebook group that we're on, and I actually picked Serrano on points, and not because I believe she was ever going to beat Katie Taylor or she's better than Katie Taylor. I just thought if this goes to the cards again, that they're going to have to give her one, and I thought if it was anywhere near close, they'd give it to Serrano. But as it turned out, I thought Katie Taylor boxed to perfection in a very disciplined fight. And as the rounds ticked away with them being 2 minute rounds, I kept thinking, right, the next round it'll get going, the next round it'll get going. But then by the time it got to the eighth and ninth round, you realise, no, this is a different kind of fight to what we've already seen. And it made you appreciate, even though it's not all looks good and thunder, that it was still a really good performance in a different kind of way. But yeah, I thought if it was anywhere near close, I thought there might have been some hometown cooking going on there and that they would have given it Serrano. Did you have any kind of worries like that?
Yeah, yeah. There was a worry that that might have happened, but I think watching the fight, you couldn't really argue.
Did
You
one
couldn't
judge give
really
it a draw?
argue. What's that?
I'm sure one judge gave it a draw on Friday night, didn't they? Which was a bit perplexing. I think it was a British judge as well, that didn't it?
That's just ridiculous. That's stupid. I think, to be fair, I don't think they could have ever given it her anyway because David Morrell shouldn't have won his fight. So I think they'd already used the card, Uno reverse card, who the winner was on that one. I think they'd already used it, so they wouldn't have been able to do it with Serrano. But I just think it was too obvious who the winner was in that fight. For it to have gone any other way than the decision of Katie, but there is always that argument sometimes that the hometown fighter does get a decision in a close fight.
For me, I think Katie Taylor solidified her position as number one pound for pound female boxer of all time, and I really don't care what Clarissa Shields has to say. Her accomplishments on paper deserve a huge amount of respect. She's just unfortunate that she doesn't have the level of competition around her to prove how good she is, because I think she's brilliant. She beat Savannah Marshall, and other than that, there's not really that standout name. She was on social media calling out Layla Ali. He's 47 years of age.
Yeah,
And it is unfortunate because she's able to go up and down these weights. But if you look at Katie Taylor, if she was to go up a weight again, she's undisputed at 140 pounds now. She goes up to 147, and you're looking at Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan, real killers in and around that weight class. Alicia Bontgander's there and thereabout as well. A third fight with Chantel Cameron. Clarissa Shields doesn't have that luxury of being able to move
yeah.
these weight classes the way she does and taking on real competition, which
Yeah.
isn't any of
Not
her
her fault. Yeah, it's
doing.
not her fault.
But for me, I think it's solidified that Katie Taylor is the very best female boxer that's ever lived.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right. I think she is number one, and then obviously I think behind her is Clarissa Shields, and I think and I'm only giving that because she's just unfortunate that she's not been able to have the level of competition around her that Katie Taylor's had.
Yeah, it was disappointing for Clarissa Shields because I always thought Savannah Marshall was going to be the one. I thought, I predicted Savannah Marshall to beat Clarissa Shields when they fought, and it was a dominant performance from Clarissa. You'd love to have seen Savannah Marshall go away from that fight, pick up some victories. She lost on the undercard of Katie Taylor Serrano on Friday, so a comeback fight with Clarissa Shields is further away than it's ever been. That was the one real name, that one real fighter that I thought, yeah, Clarissa Shields can have a bona fide rivalry with her and show her greatness if that's how good she is. She's not got that. She's going to fight Shadessa Green again, who beat Savannah Marshall. It's not screaming the way Katie Taylor fights scream. And for me, we spoke about Usyk. Does he retire on Saturday night if he beats Dubois again? Katie Taylor, all these accomplishments, Olympic gold, multiple world titles, undisputed. Does she hang them up now?
I didn't ride off into the sunset. You got nothing else to prove. Like, there's no point. No, what's the point of getting in with like somebody younger that can, I don't see the, not that you're ducking her out, but there's no point. Like, you've beaten everybody. There's nobody else. And no one's going to begrudge you for it. Everyone's going to be there and cheering you on and going, yeah, and you'll be remembered for years to come. Because I don't want it to be a case of when you're that good. Because like Roy Jones Jr. was that good, but the end of his career, when you look at all the knockouts and the people he lost to, you're like, wow. and it kind of puts a little dampener on how good they actually were. Roy Jones doesn't get into a lot of many people's elite category of like top three fighters just because of that. Whereas really, in reality, he shouldn't have been having them fights, and that's why I think, yeah, Katie Taylor, Usyk if he wins on Saturday, bow out on a high.
Yeah, I think for me, if there was one fight that I'd be slightly interested in because I don't want it to tarnish a legacy, as you say, would be the trilogy fight with Chantel Cameron. If we talk about trilogies that don't need to happen, if it's tied at one apiece, the one argument would be that Kate Taylor won the rematch conclusively enough for it not to warrant a trilogy. I know Chantel Cameron would want that fight until the day she retires. But yeah, I think other than that, would you go up to 147 and try and win a world title against Michaela Mayer? Maybe. But other than that, I think, yeah, hang them up and take a well-earned break because that's not right. Katie Taylor, other than Saturday night or Friday night, she tends to engage in real hard fights, doesn't she? I think Friday was the first time in a long time that I didn't see her with a hair or frizzed out. He was in these tight plats.
Yeah,
By the end of the fight, he was still in the tight plats, and that's how I described the fight to my brother. He went, "Is it worth watching?" I went, "Well, Katie's plats are still in," and he went, "Yeah, I won't watch it," because the
yeah.
general sign of a Katie Taylor fight
Yeah,
is when the
she's
plats
all
are out.
over the place, isn't
Yeah.
it? It is, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, Chantel Cameron trilogy, maybe Michaela Mayer, if they can get it somewhere near, I don't know, 145 catch weight, 146 catch weight, maybe. But other than that, yeah, take retirement, take a well-earned rest, and enjoy the money that you've earned. Because for me, like I say, pound for pound, the greatest female fighter that's ever lived.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think bow out now. No one will have any qualms. I know you got the 1-1, but so beat it convincingly the first time. So
Yeah.
why, why?
Saturday night, Hamzah Sheeraz in his super middleweight debut, coming off the back of a contentious draw with Carlos Adames at middleweight. Uh, the one real blemish on his record, I know he had that fight with Bradley Skeet that was quite controversial. Went it with Edgar Berlanga, who for a long time he goes 16 fights, 16 wins, 16 first round knockouts. Then he kind of went to decision a couple of times, and he gets a fight with Canelo. He gets beat very convincingly by Canelo, and yeah, he's a big puncher. I'm not sure if he was ever really rated as a boxer as such, with all due respect. But Hamza Sheeraz blew him away in what's going to go down as one of the performances of the year. Super middleweight debut, big card, big bill, lots of eyes on him. He's one of the flag bearers for the Riyadh season, Ring Magazine, Turkey El Sheikh, Influx in boxing, and boy did he perform, Jamie! What a win and what a knockout!
Vic, honestly, I was a bit nervous for him going into the fight because, like, obviously, I think, like you said, Belanga weren't not a great boxer, but he is, he's a game guy and he hits hard. But the mad thing is, when they were in there, even though Shiraz didn't look as filled out as him, he looks a lot bigger than him. Do you know what I mean? Even though he weren't muscular like bigger than him, he looks a lot bigger than him, and he absolutely bullied him and battered him. And Shiraz didn't really have an answer. He couldn't really do anything. And I'm not Shiraz, sorry, Belanga didn't really have an answer for anything that Shiraz did from round one onwards. And when he left up right hand and he just went all over the place, and I don't know why they let him go out in the fifth round because them two knockdowns in round four were heavy, really bad. And obviously they let him come out and he took one right hand and he weren't in any position because he flopped down straight away. And but yeah, what a performance from Shiraz and didn't think he had it in him. Not because that sounds wrong that obviously I knew he had it in him to, he's a good fighter, but I mean, I didn't think he had it in him to go out and absolutely starch Belanga like that. And I don't think we can look at it and go, oh, Belanga was overrated because he weren't. It was
Mhm.
just that Shiraz is actually really good, and maybe the fight against Adamas was one of them nights where he was struggling to make the weight
Well, that was it,
because he
wasn't it? There
looked,
was the weight, there was the hand injury. You
yeah,
couldn't
he
get
did
that
hurt his
back.
hand, didn't he, as
Yeah.
well. So there was, and he got a draw. I thought Adamas won it, but he looked incredible, and I think that could be his division. That could be his division where he goes on and dominates.
Absolutely. I think a lot for Hamza Shiraz. I think he will ride on September 13th with Canelo against Terence Crawford and the super middleweight titles on the line there because if the winner, there might be a rematch. Who knows? If Canelo wins, and I certainly see Canelo Hamza Shiraz because of the standing Hamza Shiraz has with Riyadh season that Turki Al-Sheikh's already come out and said he deserves a Canelo fight in 2026. So I think that's kind of the route to go down, which I think is amazing to think Hamzah Sheeraz is on the cusp of a undisputed world title fight with Canelo if Canelo beats Crawford. If Crawford wins, I think that's where the picture might become a little bit murky. I think Crawford
Yeah.
wins, Canelo will push for a rematch. I think if Crawford loses to Canelo, he'll kind of take it on the chin and move back down in weight. He might even retire. If Crawford wins, the belts might become fragmented. There might be a vacant title on the line. Who knows? Hamzah Sheeraz and Canelo might get it on for one of the vacant titles. So I think a lot rides on September 13th. But one thing is for sure, Hamzah Sheeraz with that kind of performance against a name, whether you rate Edgar Blanca or not, he talks a good talk. He didn't really walk the walk, but people know who he is. And Hamzah Sheeraz, the world's his oyster. I think they'll try and get him out again later on in the year and then really push for Canelo in 2026. Also on the card, Shakur Stevenson, three-weight world champion, goes in against Zepeda, which for me, Zepeda, I thought could have been his kryptonite. He was never avoided him, but I thought if there's one guy in that division that's going to really stick it on Shakur Stevenson, it was either going to be that he'd be too much for Shakur and overwhelm him, or it'd be how it played out on Saturday night, where it's the perfect dance partner for Shakur Stevenson to look like the pound for pound superstar that he is and punch perfect display. And if there was ever a fight where you could write unanimous decision victory for Shakur Stevenson all over it, it was that night, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm buzzing that they got it because I'm a massive Shakur Stevenson fan. Um, what as I'm watching it from a boxing point of view, he is incredible. Like he is on the level of like Mayweather in terms of how he just reads everything, he sees it all, and he's never had to get into a. He's been that good. He's never had to really get into a bit of a firefight, and everybody always questioned that. And it was mint to see him come out and go, "All right, sound. I'll stand there toe to toe," and which he did. What he did, obviously sat on the ropes for quite a long time, but yo, Cepeda put the pressure on, and I'll be honest, yeah, he caught him with some shots and whatnot, but he was just downloading all the. You could see what Shakur was doing. He was like, just gonna let you do your thing, let people think the. And he for every five shots Cepeda threw, he probably might have landed one of the five shots, and it might have just been one that had slipped through the guard or whatnot.
Yeah.
He never really, to me, looked like, especially after round six, that he was in that fight. I think from round six onwards, Shakur absolutely dominated him. And like you said, it was a punch perfect performance. And he made Cepeda miss quite a lot of the times. He made Cepeda work for his openings. And while he was doing that, he just picking him off with nice little. And that's the thing with boxing. You don't have to be a heavy hitter and knock people out. You just he absolutely broke Cepeda. Even though Cepeda didn't look like it, I'm telling you now, he'd gone in that changing room afterwards and would have been like, wow, would have felt like an absolute broken man. And big up Shakur because this is what people wanted to see. Could he do that? And he turned up, showed him that he could, and then absolutely outboxed somebody that everybody thought was going to overdo it and pressure him too much.
Yeah, well, you know what you mentioned there kind of leads into my next point that Shakur Stevenson has that kind of ability where you don't need to have that one punch knockout power to win fights. Uh, Other than Tank Davis, I don't think there's another fighter at 135 that's going to trouble him. And with that skill set that he has, he looks like a big frame as well. He's only a young man. This is the kind of guy that I can see going up and winning world titles at 140 and even maybe 147. Do you see the clip of him talking with Conor Benn and you think, you're young enough and athletic enough to put on this weight and go up, and your
Beats Conor
skills
Benn,
will
by
pay
the
the
way.
bills.
Beats Conor Benn. Conor Benn sitting there giving it all big licks, mate. I tell you now, Conor Benn, he would annihilate you. Not annihilate you with knocking you out, but he would. I don't think you'll get close to him for 12 rounds.
When we'll touch on that, then we'll go a bit more in depth with the Conor Benn and Shakur Stevenson situation. For those that haven't seen it, it's on the Ariel Hawar on the show, so you'll find it on YouTube or social media or whatnot. It was quite a decent debate, though, wasn't it? It didn't need to be that kind of, fuck you this and bastard that and motherfucker and all that kind of thing. It was very respectful, but there was a lot of pride at stake there. They
Yeah,
were
yeah.
jousting very well. Um, I think when you hear Conor Benn say, I've got a lot of this and I've got a big set of cojones, that doesn't matter if you're going to fight somebody with the skills of Shakur Stevenson. You can have
Yeah.
all the heart and all the balls that you want. Every fighter's got that. 99.9% of fighters have got that. Yeah, Shakur Stevenson's all wrong for Conor Benn.
All wrong. And
And
you know what you say,
I
like you
think he's
said,
all
with
wrong for a lot of fighters
a
between
lot of fighters,
140 and
yeah, yeah.
147 as well.
Sometimes having cojones and a heart is a downfall against a fighter like Shakur Stevenson. because you're just going to play into his hands and just I don't see what. And it was respectful, and I think I became even bigger fan of Shakur watching it because he was just like, mate, I'm a boxer, mate. I'm not a fighter. Like you're saying, yeah, you're a fighter, but I'm a boxer. And you know,
It was a bit where he go. Conor Benn was like, I need respect for going up 2 weight classes to fight Chris Eubank, and he's like, Shakur Ben, well, I'll be coming up 2 weight divisions to fight you. You know, he was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it not,
He's very like
yeah,
he's
quick,
witty
quick,
with it. He's quick with it, but he's not disrespectful with it. He says it all in quite a classy manner. I rate this guy. I'm down for him. I like the way he speaks, and I think that was a big fight for him. Where hopefully we now see him in bigger things because another thing was that he weren't sellable, and hopefully
yeah,
this makes him sellable.
definitely. Because you look at that 140 division, and you think, Richardson, Hitchens, Teofimo Lopez, and then up at welterweight, we've already touched on Mario Barrios and Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan fighting for the IBF title. Norman Jr. against Devin Haney for a version of the world title as well. Shakur Stevenson, I'd love to see him keep active and fight regularly. Go up to 140, take a belt there. Maybe doesn't even have to stick around to unify or become undisputed. Just win a belt there, immediately step up to 147. Really push the boundaries of his greatness. And we could be sat here in 18, 24 months and be like, Shakur Stevenson's a 5-weight world champion, before the
Yeah,
age of 30. I really do think he's that good. Just to close out on one of the other little snippets from that Shakur Stevenson Conor Benn segment on Helwani's show, these murmurings, these rumours, these talks that Conor Benn, Chris Eubank might not be on that Chris Eubank's looking to walk away from this fight. Have you seen any of that, Jamie? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I've heard about it, and do you know what? Like, if I'm Chris Eubank, I'll say, look, I know I've signed this and that, but I ain't doing that again. If you want to, and I think the problem with, I don't, obviously we'll never know, but I think the problem with that fight was, I don't think Chris Eubank was as in the knowledge of what the contract was. I think Ben Shalom just wanted him to be able to be promoting the fight as a boxer and kind of gave in to the demands because you look at it now as a rematch. Why is it the same?
Yeah,
Why is it the
that
same
doesn't
stuff?
make
And
sense to me. We've
it don't
spoken
make
about
sense.
this
If you're
before.
Chris Eubank, you're going to be like, nah.
Yeah,
Like the guy's like this is like his third fight now at
yeah,
fucking 160.
because that's what they've got to let go
I
of.
don't need to be having the weight
Yeah.
clause.
That's what they've got to let go of. It was a 147 fight that had fought a couple of times at 154, moving up to 160. It wasn't a straight jump, and then he had the full camp at 160. So you kind of think, he's not at a disadvantage. You bring in Chris Eubank down because you think you can, and Chris Eubank, the master manipulator, master at mind games. I won't be surprised if this is deployed to get himself a better deal, maybe
Yeah,
some more cash. He's got Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn on strings. They'll be pulling your hair out because Conor Benn won't be able to rest. If he can say what he wants, oh, I'll walk away from this and I'll go and fight such and such. He will never be able to fully rest and be satisfied with his career if he never gets a W back against a Eubank. His dad
yeah.
couldn't do it against Senior. If he can't do it against Junior, he's a very proud man. You can see that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He will really struggle to deal with that. So I think this is very clever from Chris Eubank because he's using the position of winning the first fight, of being the A side to kind of go, no, 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 you're going to dance to my tune now. If this fight
So
comes
we
up,
should. We should.
yeah, and rightly so. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. But that brings us to the end of another stacked episode, Jamie. It's always a pleasure to catch up. Is there anything you want to close us out with?
No, I was hoping we got onto the talk of Shakur Stevenson. We managed to slide it in there at the end, so I was happy with that. But yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything. And what a weekend we've got, man! I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. We could all be massively wrong come the next podcast.
Absolutely. So, guys, make sure you check out all the boxing this weekend. Let us know your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. We've got massive main events. You've got stacked undercards, fights that we didn't even have time to touch on with Fandora and Tizou and Jesse Bam Rodriguez unifying the super flyweight division on a stacked card from Matchroom. Plenty of action going down. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to all our subscribers here on YouTube. We hit the 1,000 sub mark, which I'm really, really proud of. We're looking to grow and grow and grow. So make sure you keep liking, commenting, sharing, turn the notifications on. Check us out on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Catch you on next week's episode.